Today, Jesse Winker had his press conference and signing that 1 year deal with the New York Mets and expresses his willingness to help the team in any way possible. And that may include first base. Plus, Jeff McNeil chimes in on the whole Pete Alonso situation. I guess we're just in a polar bear holding pattern until then. And of course, as I record this, we're about 24 hours removed from the Hall of Fame class of 2025 being set. We're going to talk about that just a little bit on this edition of Mets Digest. What's going on, everybody? Flobo Boyce here, and thanking you for making me on this show and this channel part of your Mets content diet. I know you have options galore. It means the world to me that you're sitting here rocking with us, meaning either myself or Mike D'Angelo on this channel. So if you're watching the content and you like what we're doing, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Do not be in that not subscribe section. Be in that subscribe section. And of course, I do read the comments, some positive, some negative. I've been reading them on the go recently. I haven't been able to chime in the chat, but I do read all of them. So thank you so much for interacting with me. Positive, negative, either way, in between. But let's get right into it. The Mets, just so interesting with another press conference slash Zoom call, because it's just kind of contradict dissonance, right? Juan Soto had like the owner and it had video packages, and he was like, "Oh, it was a big fanfare," and everyone else just has these Zoom meetings. But it was Jesse Winker's turn, and thankfully he got his own press conference, because whether you like Jesse, you didn't like Jesse, or learned to love Jesse, he was instrumental in that 2024 Mets run. Signed a 1 year, $8 million deal with the team, and because that happened the same day where the reports were swirling about the Alonso contract being pretty much far apart for both Alonso's camp and the Mets camp, it came on almost a bittersweet day where we got Jesse Winker back, but we had some uncertainty with Pete, so it was kind of good that Jesse got some time to really, give himself a little bit of props for how he helped out the team. Now, some things are pretty much standard operating procedure. Excited to be part of a 2025 squad. Said he always wanted to be back. Made it clear he wanted to be back. And as somebody who loves teams a little bit of edge, maybe because I'm a 90s kid, it was kind of cool to see Jesse Winker not only show a bit of what they call grit now, but actually doing it for us. I'm just saying this. I tell my friends this all the time. I know it's not the whole point of this video, but we got hit by so many pitches in 22 and 23, but at the end of 24, that stopped. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason why I clicked on this video is about the situation, but helping the team. Jesse has shown that he's willing to help the team wherever way is possible in any capacity, and he was asked and pressed about first base. Well, this, I thought, was pretty rad. Shout out to SMYTV for the transliteration here. Quote, I'm Jesse Winker. I'm definitely comfortable playing first base. Like I said, whatever is asked of me, I'll be ready. I'll put my best foot forward and give it everything I have. I definitely got more comfortable at first base about 2 years ago. Up until then, I hadn't really played it, but it was definitely a position that kind of felt like, man, maybe I should have been playing this a long time ago to have at least a tool in my tour bag per se. So yeah, I'm definitely comfortable there. And actually, he goes into detail at the conference about doing it in like Arizona, which is like a random opponent. But yeah, here is somebody who's willing to be placed wherever. Every team needs those. Those are the instrumental glues of squad. Those are the kind of guys that win championships. Whether it was Iglesias last season, or if you're old enough to remember, Luis Guillorme for us a couple of years ago. But Jesse's down to be the guy, to be the glue, and being open to play not only in the outfield but in the infield as well can definitely help a situation if the team was willing to go into a platoon situation for first base. Now, Pete Alonso is still a free agent. He has not signed with a team as of this recording, but there really has been a look, a desire, maybe a bit of a thirst to see what that plan B or plan C was going to be if Alonso were to walk. Or if you do the whole moving Vientos to first base thing, again, personally as a fan, not my favorite outcome, because I do think that Vientos developed his arm over time. But if you do that, there may be situations defensively you want to put back Mark Vientos at third, who would be at first. And of course, you have really big question marks when it comes to Brett Beatty or Ronnie Mauricio. Right? Let's take a look at the stat line here. Again, not necessarily going to hit the world on fire, definitely Journeyman's numbers, but to be able to be a little bit of a spark in a kind of different way, but kind of the same way of how he was brought in like Cespedes was in 2015. It's interesting for Jesse Winker. Of course, that good time is pretty much a roll on next season. Very much a low-risk contract for both sides. Jesse gets to have a bigger pronounced role as far as knowing what his mission is up front going in. The team actually gets a pretty able hand for the next to absolutely nothing. And being able to say that he can play the 7, the 9, the DH spot, you could tell in the position column there, adding the 3, the first base is pretty interesting as well. What say you? Jesse Winker being able to be in that first base core? Do we have a first base core? Or is this all the smoke and mirrors for the inevitable Pete Alonso reunion? I don't think Pete's going to be unsigned when it comes to spring training, but if he doesn't get signed to the Mets, then who? I'm running out of options here. I mean, there's actual videos where I try to go through this in earnest, but I'm running out of possible options for Polar Bear Pete. But if he doesn't be a part of that, having someone who's down to be as a Swiss Army knife as Jesse is always great. The actual press conference is 10 minutes. I suggest you check it out when you have the chance. Now, this actually goes in the lockstep about us being in the dark, about us not really understanding what the Mets are planning for their plan B or C or D if Pete Alonso does not get re-signed. Is it going to be the Vladimir Guerrero play? Is it going to be a platoon core? It looks like players are also in the dark. Sean Manaea at his press conference about a week ago said, I don't know. I work out with Pete. I just want him to make sure he has a good outcome. I don't know what the deal is. And Jeff McNeil actually spoke to Newsday about that very subject a day and a half ago. Says, this shout out to Pat Ragazzo at SI.com for the transliteration. Says, McNeil is certainly puzzled as to why his good friend Alonso remains a free agent as of January 22nd, which is the day I record this, with spring training just 3 weeks or so away. Quote, a little bit surprised he's still out there, McNeil told Anthony Reber of Newsday on Tuesday via Zoom. He's really a good buddy on the team, McNeil added. I wish him all the best. Now, this also brings another issue, right? We talked about having the talent. We talked about people with the hands, the skills, and all that. But what about chemistry? Now, chemistry is important. That's what actually wins championships. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. This team, no team, can compete with the Dodgers and what they're doing. On strictly talent and personnel, the Dodgers are a class above. Now, we've watched enough baseball to see the Dodgers chip over their shoelaces in the first round of the playoffs. But having chemistry is super important. So Jeff McNeil, which is going to be on your team for at least one more season if you don't trade him, saying, hey, look, one of your star players that's on the fence and coming back to the team or not is actually someone I really like, respect, trust, and love playing with, maybe something to consider. Not saying that's going to be a definite. I'm not saying you're going to sign Pete because of Jeff McNeil. But I'm saying is if you do decide to bring a fresh hand, now will be the time because you have to ramp up that chemistry when it comes down to spring training. So interesting to take on that one. Jeff McNeil still wants to get himself a teammate in the name of Pete Alonso. I also want Pete Alonso back personally, but who knows what I want. And as we end this and wrap this up in this edition of Mets Digest, yesterday was the Hall of Fame class induction. We give it up for former Met Billy Wagner, 4 seasons with the orange and blue. Finally walking into the Hall of Fame his last year of eligibility. It's kind of a complicated situation. Basically, you have 10 years on the ballot, and you have to score anywhere between 5% and 70% of the vote to stay on it. If you get 75% of the vote of the 493 ballots out there, then you get to go to Cooperstown. And so there were years where Billy Wagner got the votes, but not enough votes to be inducted. That all changed yesterday. And for those of you who are keeping score, Carlos Beltran getting closer, but the 70% mark just missed the cutoff, is projected to be inducted next year, hopefully if you're a supporter, and hopefully not if you're a detractor. And one of my favorite all-time Mets, my number 2 of all time behind the Betty Agbayani, David Wright scored 8% of the vote. I was a little worried because a lot of the people who published their ballots online didn't have David Wright checked, but that means not only he's not inducted this year, but with over 5% of the vote, he lives to fight another year. Next year will be his third season of eligibility, third year of eligibility. And if you, unfortunately, on the other end, Curtis Granderson did not cross that 5% threshold, he will not be on the ballot next year. That does it for me on this edition of Mets Digest. Crazy time. Jesse Winker's back. He's playing first base, an option offensively for the Mets. Jeff McNeil wants Pete Alonso back, thinks he's a good buddy, but doesn't really have any information about when that's going to be. And Billy Wagner, the alpaca farmer himself, is now headed to Cooperstown. I kind of wish he went in with the Mets cap, but I'm pretty almost positive that won't be the case. That does it for me on this edition of Mets Digest. Thank you so much for checking out the video. And as always, it's LGM to the bitter end.